Welcome to Spoiler Alert. I'm Dr. Darin Detwiler,
I'm Callin Godson-Green.
and we are coming live from the International Association for Food Protection, IAFP, in a very kind of a niche place. You've either been there, and this is our first time. This is your first time?
First time.
First time. For the three of us, this is our first time here in Cleveland, Ohio. You know where another niche place on the map on this big planet of ours is?
Where?
Dublin, Ireland.
Very niche.
Very niche. Have you ever been there?
I have.
You have?
Just once, though. But
Just once?
maybe for 27 years.
I can hear it in your accent.
Oh, thanks.
You know
I
who
think
else
that's
has
a
been
compliment.
to Dublin, Ireland?
Who?
I have.
Oh,
One time.
how long?
4 or 5 days.
Nearly the 27.
Yeah. Then I went over the west side of the island, went up to Galway. You know who else has been to Dublin, Ireland?
Who?
Our guest. Our guest.
Hailing from Dublin, Ireland, I've spent a few more years there than you. Proud to still live in Dublin, Ireland, but glad to be here in Cleveland at the IAFP. It's always good to visit.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is Cronan McNamara of Creme Global, based out of Dublin, Ireland. And you and I have had the great opportunity to collaborate. We've been to Dubai together a couple times. We did the whole Predict UK about predictive analytics.
Ireland, predicting Ireland.
Ireland.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we've had opportunity to meet up at other IFP locations, including near where I live last year.
That was nice, yeah.
But here we are in Cleveland, Ohio, and we're talking about spoiler alerts. I want to focus on the idea of what you would probably know best in looking at data and data analytics. But I think for our audience who has no idea who you are, they know where you're from.
Yeah.
That's most important.
That is most important, right? But they don't know much about you. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do and about Creme Global.
Thanks, Darin. Great to be here at Callin. Thanks for hosting. This is a great setup here at IAFP. So Creme Global is a data science, scientific analytics company based in Ireland. I formed it 20 years ago, just in April, so it was our birthday this year.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. We spun out from Trinity College. My background is physics and maths and computing, and I met a professor there called Professor Mike Gibney, who has passed away last year, unfortunately. But we started working on applying mathematical modeling to food safety risk assessment and exposure assessment in particular. So looking at pesticides in food and combining that with data on who's eating what and what the risks of exposure are. So a company formed in April 2005, and we've been building out a cloud-based analytics platform, which is very secure. And now we're using that to help organizations aggregate and anonymize data. So trade organizations can now gather a lot of data from all their members, anonymize that, aggregate it, and look for hidden trends. And spoiler alert, potential spoilers that you could never see otherwise unless you get this big data, and also the metadata that comes with it. So location, timestamp, time of year. So you can then relate that to climate and weather and location data, and the type of product it was, whether it was pre-processed or what stage of processing the product was tested at, or was it the water test, etc. So all of that data can inform so much about food safety. And that's what we're working hard on to try and do.
Well, as you're talking about 20 years, I would imagine that landscape has changed radically, not only in terms of the technology you're using, but how this data is being used.
Yeah. Like in 20 years, we're probably on our third generation of tech now. We started out always on the cloud, always on the web. Our vision was to kind of make high performance computing accessible to anybody with a web browser. So that was kind of our mission, and to make that like accessible to all scientists, and no matter what company they're in, if they just kind of log into our system, they could access powerful computing. And of course, then we moved on to cloud computing, and we do a lot of, we have all our stuff on the cloud. But now we're into the age of AI. AI has truly arrived. We've been waiting for it for many decades, and it was always a decade away. But now I believe the genuine AI has arrived. So in the last 1 year, 1 to 2 years probably, so these models are super powerful, and they're trained on the whole public internet, right? So then what you can do then is actually combine in the proprietary data that we've collected that's private to industry, and actually supplement those models and train them up on the specifics of what you want them to study, like all this data we mentioned, like food safety testing, water testing, and then like apply that powerful AI with all the knowledge it has with this new data and see what it can predict. And this is a very exciting time. So the message is AI is truly now arrived and ready to go.
And I would imagine that, a lot of people think that AI, like, oh, it takes the place of people's jobs. Whereas from your description, it totally accelerates what people can do in those roles.
There's the risks and the opportunities of AI. And I'm not saying, it will transform the way we work and, potentially make us far more efficient in certain jobs and maybe reduce the need for as many people in certain roles. But I really see it as an opportunity, especially for us as a company, to leverage that power, empower our team to do more. So we want to grow, we want to use AI and discover new things that were never possible before. So yeah, so there's definitely huge opportunities. They will come with disruption though, for sure, in the jobs market. So I don't even know where that's going, to be honest with you. But we'll have to watch and learn, I suppose.
You mentioned, so you started 20 years ago.
Yeah.
When you began, what problem were you trying to solve? Or like what had happened that made you be like,
Yeah.
there's a space for this?
I think the what was called data science at the time even, was only in its infancy, especially in the food sector, right? So we saw a huge opportunity to bring the kind of advanced maths modeling that was kind of prevalent in like financial services and insurance and all these other industries, but it wasn't being used in food safety. So we were like genuinely trying to bring as much data as we could into that and then develop scientific models. So we published a lot of papers on the methods and using what's called probabilistic modeling, Monte Carlo simulation, and just applying that to the data to understand consumer risk, consumer exposure. So like what foods are higher in different levels of heavy metals, pesticides, etc. Who's consuming those foods? What exposure levels are they getting? Are they safe? Should we have some more restrictions or less restrictions? So very much working with industry and government to understand that landscape with much more refined maths and data. So that was the opportunity we started with, and we still do that to this day, exposure modeling. Done a lot in the chemicals and cosmetics space, actually, in the same approach of aggregating a lot of industry data and providing this rich information on consumer habits and practices and exposure to different ingredients. And then the food safety side has really moved on into more, pathogen testing,
Nice.
predictive around agriculture and processing environments, which seems to be a huge challenge. It's a very complex system of food production.
Yeah.
A lot of things can go wrong. So, the more data you can bring to the table, the better.
Speaking of bringing to the table, when I was out there my one time in
Ireland,
Dublin, Ireland, there was a fascinating conversation in that I believe it was with the big newspaper, how they were using predictive analytics, how they were using technology. And what the gist of the conversation is that you have the people that are making the purchasing decisions and the evaluating and the ultimate decision makers. But you also have the people that are going to be using this and trying to make the biggest change. And sometimes those people are far apart on a spectrum. And what someone was looking at in terms of this would be the positive indicator of success is not necessarily what these people over here are saying. This is the positive indicator of success in using and why we invested in this technology.
Right.
Do you encounter that kind of disconnect or that that give and take sometimes?
Often food safety isn't the top priority for a lot of big organizations, maybe, let's say. So if we can provide other value, as in efficiencies or operational efficiency data, that can be a more attractive proposition to try to get at least started on initiatives to gather data and analyze data, and always with the ultimate goal of food safety and quality underpinning that. So sometimes you have to bring something else to the table to kind of join those dots between the different departments and make sure that the project can get support, right?
That sounds like short-term and long-term goals.
Yeah.
Or short-term and long-term successful targets.
It's that you want to try and show, as you say, quick wins, low-hanging fruit, get some success early. If people are investing in these projects, they can be quite long-term to get the real value. So you have to have little wins along the way, I think is a good strategy.
Well, one of the things, have you ever heard of being data rich but information poor?
Always.
That seems to be one of those, oh, we don't want to end up in that situation kind of things. But it's not like that's an accidental situation. It seems like if you're not asking the right questions, or if you're not prioritizing the right data, or if you're not empowering your team with what to do with this data, that becomes the missing link in terms of how do you turn data into actionable information.
Like in a lot of places, data is collected for a certain purpose. It could be just for, regulatory, box ticking, and it's left on the shelf. And with all this new powerful technology that's out there to analyze data, I think you're right. I think the key issue is asking the right questions, because the answers can be formulated using the technology, and it's not as challenging as it would have been like 10 years ago. So in this age of data and AI, it's all about the right questions, in my opinion. That's where the human element comes still into the loop, is where do you ask the right questions?
That's like the theme across all AI use. When people are using ChatGPT for general writing emails and stuff, you need to ask it the right questions, or it's just going to present you with kind of generic information and overload.
Well, yeah, if you're not asking it enough detail in your prompt, right, and you get some result back and you're like, that was useless. I
You're
can't
garbage.
use that.
You have no idea what I'm talking about.
Maybe it's
not its fault.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's like the computer AI is like, I'm trying to do my best here, but
I have no idea what you mean.
throw me some useful details to build.
You're like, oh wait, I didn't tell it in relation to food
as a
safety.
customer. Like, I don't want to work with you anymore, says the AI. You're just not clear enough in your thinking or your questioning. So yeah, it's a real skill now. I think I always think of it as collaborating with AI. As a team, and as our team collaborates with AI to get results, it's now part of our team, but it's not infallible. It'll give you sometimes answers that sound truthful. So you do have to, check, triangulate sometimes the results from different AIs, our standard Google searches, those old fashioned Google searches we used to do.
Yeah.
And they come with AI answers anyway nowadays. You notice that?
Yeah, they even prompt you on. I mean, there's little times that like you can ask a question better.
Right.
It's like, wow, thanks for assuming I didn't know how to ask this question or whatever.
Yeah.
But I get it in terms of the idea that if the AI or the solution is trying to sell itself in terms of the best possible conditions, it's got to help you ask a better question. I recently saw a video about how, like asking better questions with ChatGPT. One of the questions you should be asking is there a better way to ask this question?
That's a really good question. Yeah.
If you're looking at collecting data and people say, well, here's my data, like here's a shoebox full of papers that are collecting dust or whatever, maybe it starts with, well, we need to collect this better data, not just the convenient data, but we need to collect it this way.
What's missing from the data that would add most value? Though it can answer those kind of questions really well. So I have all this data and I'm looking to try and figure out these things. What other data should I be looking for? And it'll actually come up with strategies and, opportunities to collect that data. So yeah, I think that's right. And asking it for help in all. One of the podcasts I was listening to on the way here, the guy says he has signs up all over the office and it says, have you asked AI yet? Because that's now your first port of call, ask AI, not just don't go around like asking people in the office anymore, which is weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But let's flip it to another set of questions. Hi, we're from company X and we don't collect any data. We don't analyze any data. We want to start doing it. We want to hire you and we're going to start Monday and we're starting from zero. And so give us some solutions right away.
First thing you do is sit down and talk, maybe some workshops, trying to find out, well, is that actually true about the no data? There must be some data in there. So I think there's like these jobs to be done frameworks, right, that are very useful. So we run them quite often with clients and literally blank page, all questions, no, so I won't be giving you any solutions. We'll be just asking a lot of questions on the first meeting or two. And then we'll form, a priority list. We'll rank and rate it. And then you guys will decide what data is easy for you. Well, it's always about like, well, what's possible, what's doable on your end, and where's the most value. So that's where you start,
Like, what problem are you trying to solve?
Yeah.
Like, what do we need help with?
What do you want to do in your
business? Is it
business?
financial?
Sure. What are our priorities? So it sounds like it wouldn't be us as a company outsourcing as much as it is now we have a partnership.
Collaborating,
Because we want to go down a path on this journey to figure out how we can collaboratively start collecting data. Who's going to collect the data? What data? Where are we going to store it? How are we going to secure it?
That's not the hard part. The hard part is more, get those workflows in place, and then we'll figure out all that storage and technology, maybe a few sensors and cheap things you can install in your business to help automate some of that process, So it's really a discussion and a collaboration, and then trying to figure out the opportunities for you, the best solutions then will fall out of that. So we would never be proposing a solution without having had those conversations.
I would imagine that the people come to you and say,
Yeah.
we want an answer, but we have our board meeting in 3 weeks.
There's a funny thing now with like FOMO on AI. And we're seeing it.
Really?
Yeah, we're seeing it. Like there's companies coming to us. We need to do this AI stuff. What do we need to do? And they're like, okay, let's have a talk. Let's chat. But they're really keen now to not miss out on this AI wave. They now see it. It's really happening, because they're waiting for it to happen for so long. And they're like, we need to be doing some of that AI stuff. And we're like, okay, let's talk.
I mean, I kind of understand it. I felt like that as well. Like
Yeah.
everyone's talking about what they were doing with ChatGPT, being like, why are you still planning holidays yourself? And then I was like, well, I better use this. Even though, and then afterwards, it's like, I actually enjoy planning the holidays
Yeah, yeah.
myself, but I feel like I should use it because
A bit
I
of
might be
Google.
missing
I love
out
the
on
old
something.
Google Maps, looking at the radius on Google Maps and finding the location, how to get
Literally.
from A to B. And,
Saving the good coffee shops,
yeah.
Now, here's another conversation we had in Ireland. Just because this company has all these answers, has all this information from you, they can decide, yeah, thank you for showing us how to maximize X, Y, and Z. We're not going to do that.
So the company decides, oh, look at all this powerful data, but I really don't want to touch that in case it tells me something I don't want to know.
Yeah,
That's,
I don't want to
that's
know that.
interesting. Yeah, that's the head in the sand.
It's like the opposite of FOMO.
Yeah, the head in
It's
the
fear
sand.
of finding out.
Yeah, not a great strategy, obviously, but it is something you do see. Because once they know, then what are they going to do? Sometimes it means, well, do I have to shut that plant or stop farming that lot? Or and now that I know that and I keep doing it, now am I going to have to defend that in court someday? So there's a risk aversion to trying to find things out. So when you have an AI model and it's saying, oh, there's an elevated risk over here of this at this time of year, what do they do with that? So that's a bit of a tricky one still, in fairness to them, because should they stop or should they do more testing?
Sure.
I think the latter, just be a little bit more vigilant, do a little bit more testing. If you find an elevated risk somewhere, at least you can then say, well, yeah, we used AI, found some risk that's a little bit elevated in this particular product line on this particular time of year, so we did this. That's fair enough, right?
Sure. Can you give us an example of, spoiler alert, something that data went down theoretical, but ideally some real. You go down a journey and data has revealed something that, wow, we would never have known that if it wasn't for our ability to find it through the data and analytics.
Yeah, that's cool. And like we've seen success in lots of projects. One of them using next generation sequencing around the manufacturing environment. And this kind of data, is very powerful because it's like looking at the microbiome of a facility. And essentially what you can do there is, and what the company found is that you can predict when the microbiome is becoming risky because you're doing your classical pathogen testing in parallel. So you're training a model to detect when the environment might become a little bit friendly to the bad bugs, right? And then you can make an intervention. I think that's incredible, like, to see that predictive power coming from the swabbing the environment on a regular basis and then figuring out, well, actually, we never would have known that except for this technology. And we're seeing an elevated risk of the bad bug growing. And the cool thing is, instead of using bleach, you could actually use other microbes to actually outcompete the bad bugs. An interesting approach to keeping a safe facility. Now, that's not being done in real life yet, but the science has proven it to be possible.
I used to work actually not in Dublin, in Wicklow, in a potable water testing plant, and we were having massive problems with biofilms.
Yeah.
But we could not figure out any correlation. Like, one day they'd be there, one day they wouldn't. The water come out, we were using UV to treat it.
Yeah.
But if we had something like
Yeah,
that,
there's
because we were
probably-
doing all the records,
Probably
everything
trends
was
there somewhere that you just
Exactly.
have to go, finding more, using more powerful tools
Yeah.
might bring it out, and then you'd be like, oh, there we go.
Yeah, obviously it's every time that Bob is working and he's just not cleaning it properly. Like,
It could be that even,
Yeah.
yeah. The
Yeah.
cleaning rotas, the
Yeah.
staffing, everything should go into the mix. Yeah.
Sure. Well, let's go back to this conversation about when you're looking at data and any kind of digital solutions, it's got to be a bit of a partnership. The idea of when you are making an investment into a solution, it's not taking a package off the shelf and just plugging it in and it starts working. You can do that, but you're going to get what you invest into it, which
Probably not,
is
what you want. Yeah.
probably not as effective of going down this
Maybe someday there'll
partnership
be
path.
AI packages that can plug in and go in and figure it all out, but not yet. Yeah.
Maybe,
Yeah.
but you would still think that you have so many different moving parts.
Yes. You still need to ask it the right questions. Exactly. You know?
Yeah.
So that's a conversation to be had about the capabilities, their needs, what's possible. All of those things have to be discussed. Yeah.
Do you would then suggest that it would be harder for a company that's been around for 100 years but has never done much in terms of data analytics as opposed to a brand new company? If you're a brand new company, you might want to make sure that this is part of your
Yeah.
game plan from the beginning.
I don't know, because if you think about the latter, right, they're in startup mode, their budgets are probably tight, it'd be nice to do everything right from the start, but there's so many things to do to get started. Maybe, you don't have the bandwidth. And imagine you're around for 100 years, you should have some budget. As long as you have the leadership that, understands that things need to change, then you have your other challenge of change management, right? So,
Well, whether it's an existing company of many, many years or a new company, if you're looking at bringing on technology to collect data, analyze data, all that kind of thing, this has got to be a interdisciplinary, multi-department type of approach. Otherwise, you're kind of going to leave Swiss holes, or you're going to leave Swiss cheese holes in
I was
your
just thinking
attempt.
this, like that is the challenge. Say that 100-year-old company, they have their finance department, operations, their procurement, their sales, their processing, the operations, their food safety, whatever they have in those areas. There's a lot of things to think about, right? But I guess that's where it comes down to that workshopping of what's there already, what's possible, what's easy to do, and ranking and rating the challenges and the opportunities. And you just have to get started. Like I don't see any. Well, I'm a bit biased being a data science company, but I just couldn't imagine not using your data to try and make your business better.
We do very different things, but it's a similar principle, like businesses that we work with come to the digital side of food safety for a reason, to prevent that, you kind of used the analogy earlier of the big box of documents. Think of like a warehouse of documents, if it's a grocery store, production plant. So we look at like, what are the benefits of going digital besides that? And, sometimes people come just for that reason. They're like, we need to get rid of this warehouse that we have all this paper sitting in. It's fire hazard. That's fine. But it'd be very easy for us to just move them over.
So you move everything off
They're
paper
digital.
into digital,
Yeah,
right?
but then, we could easily be like, there you go, everything's digital, see you later. But that's, there's no use. We now have these kind of abilities to trend and to use your analogy of data rich, information poor, we want to swap that. We want to give them these new insights that like, your fridge is performing fine, but it's trending in a concerning direction. What can we do about that proactively? The information is there. So we have that same mindset of like, we have this information, we want to do something with it and get action out of it.
The nice thing is, all of that digital data could have been like scanned PDFs or all sorts of stuff. But the good thing about AI now is that it can start to actually pull the data off those even handwritten PDFs with reasonable reliability, so all of that information that was kind of locked away because it was too hard to scan in off a PDF is now becoming available because these AIs can figure it out. So that's on opportunity. Then you get to structured data, right? So there's data and then there's structured data, which is where you want to be. And once you have structured data, then you can really look at opportunities to apply new AI models. So yeah, there's AI is solving a lot of the different pain points on that journey that you're you're digitizing as well. So the next step would be to try to figure out how to get all the value from all that information into the business.
So there's been a lot of conversation about the idea of the C-suite, the corporate executive offices, and how the food safety quality assurance leader, whether it's a VP or a director or whatever the title is often not at that table. Would you say that this data has got to be in the room. It's got to be at that table. If the leaders, whether they are in finance or whatever it is, logistics or whatever, if they're not looking at this data in terms of predicting their next quarter or evaluating their past quarter, they're missing a big opportunity from the highest levels of that kind of corporate totem pole.
Definitely. So probably the CIO role is probably what you're thinking. Chief Information Officer probably is at that table, and maybe the CFO. So, those people are very data driven and they should be bringing all of that in. Now, I think AI should be at the table as well. Sometimes you can just turn on AI in the meeting and listening to the meeting and ask it for suggestions. So maybe they'll just add an extra team member, which is cost effective, $20 a month AI into that meeting, right? Why not?
Sure, you can have the CIO in the room.
Yeah.
And how are things going, CIO? They're fine. Okay, good. Moving on. Next item on our agenda. Or, okay, can you show us the data? Can you walk us through what this data? Can you show us the trend? Because it's one thing, I think, to say the trend shows us this. It's another thing to put that in front of the people at the decision level and saying, I want you to look at this growth or this decrease or whatever, this change over time.
Yeah, visualize the data.
Yeah, because that would make data points become much more of something that's tangible in front of those decision makers' eyes.
Absolutely. And you really have to, I'm just thinking, you really have to trust that CIO because they could probably tell any story they want with the data, right? So you have to make sure that they're, on the same vision and mission as the other leadership members and really honest about the business and showing the real data, right? So because it's a small, at that level, they're probably going to have 5-10 minutes, right? They're not going to be able to go into deep dive into the questions and answers. So you have to trust those people to really bring the right questions and the right visualizations into that meeting. The really crucial points about the business. Is food safety on that data set? I don't know.
I'd hope so.
It should be. Yeah.
For a food company.
Yeah, for a food company.
It should be the number one question.
Yeah, of course.
And we know
I think so.
it often isn't.
Yes. Probably a lot more finance and profit
sales and distribution and all that
logistics.
Stuff. Yeah, but what about the food safety? So let's hope that becomes a important agenda item and the data is there to support it, right? And I think AI should be at that table and they should be asking it questions about, well, what is this data telling us? What are the big risks? What are the big opportunities? What are the big opportunities for my business, based on all this data? New sales opportunities, etc. That's where I think the power will come.
Well, I think that this is going to have a big impact in terms of if you're looking at investment, you're looking at the stock market, things of that nature. Remember those Chipotle outbreaks year after year for there were 6 different pathogens, always big outbreaks. There were insurance companies and there were large capital venture companies that were contacting me. And the first thing they said was, wow, we understand about this. And that used to be our number one. We realized we weren't asking the right questions. Think about that. So it's not even about food safety in that case. It's about their investors and those blind spots that they assumed because it's a big company that's been around for a while that they need to ask those food safety questions. Exactly. I'm sure it's
imagine being an investor in a food company and not thinking about food safety.
Those food safety questions may seem like that's a very niche area, but those have a direct impact on the investment, the economics, the growth of the capital.
The risk of your investment, right? Yeah.
So data analytics is a big picture. We have to look at what questions are being asked. We have to look at that journey. It's not just a outsourcing or a plug and play solution.
Collaboration with a data science provider. It's a collaboration with AI, with your leadership team. And it's all about those right questions. I think that's where we got to, right?
Well, I thank you for letting us ask some questions as we went on this journey, talking about digital solutions, talking about AI and data collection and analytics. I think that it's one of those things that ultimately, at the end of the day, when we look at the price that we pay for food, whether it's at the grocery store or at the restaurant, we kind of make the assumption that, oh, if it's more expensive, it's because all this is going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And we want to make sure that the right questions are being asked.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. We're going to put this in the can and get it out to you as soon as possible. Anyway, join us next time for our next episode. Who knows where we'll be? Thank you very much. This is Spoiler Alert.